Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
You said next Tuesday could be difficult for the president. Mm-hmm. Is the White House yet trying to figure out how to handle an election where Democrats take back the House? And I'm not talking about legal positioning. I'm talking about political messaging. What do they say? And I don't know if it's going to happen, but what do they say if it happens?
So remember, A, there's a difference between what the White House is going to figure out and what the president's going to do, because he tends to keep his own counsel. Number two, you've seen early discussion of this, that Democrats and some in the White House are looking at what can they work on together, both to try to make the White House not look terrible, not make the Democrats look as if all they're doing is attacking. I think that's going to be very hard for the president's Republican base. It's going to be hard for the House Freedom Caucus to, essentially sit idly by if he is then going out and trying to do an infrastructure bill. I think at the end of the day, the Democratic base is not going to go for that. So I think that what you have next is the president saying to people, this is good for me. I have a dysfunctional Congress, which is what they assume is going to ultimately be what it looks like, not in terms of the investigations and what we expect to come, but just in terms of getting anything done beyond, and including possibly a budget. He believes that a divided government could be useful for him, whether that reality is the case.
Just in terms of having a
target. It's something to run against. Exactly. Yeah. It's when you are the party in power, it can be pretty hard to find someone, as we have seen repeatedly, as he has yelled about a Republican-controlled Congress as if they have nothing to do with him.
And Democrats believe that it could be useful for investigative purposes.
Yeah, look, I think that you can expect that there is going to be a rather broad menu of investigations that are going to be started by House committees. If they are led by the Democrats, one of them, can assume, will be in the judiciary. Where that goes, we don't know, but they certainly know they are going to face a large number of subpoenas if Democrats take control of the House. That's not a surprise to anyone. And I don't think they're prepared for that reality, honestly. That's the reality they really are not. They meaning the president and some others, that this is going to be very, very ugly.
It is Wednesday, the 31st of October of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Scary Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, just in time for Halloween. Yes, just a little bit of flakes of red pepper this time to bring out, the red. That's right, folks. It is Halloween, and it's going to get very, very scary and very, very ugly. And that's at least what Maggie said at the top there. And I don't know exactly what she means by that. Scary for who? Scary for Donald Trump, or scary for what Donald Trump might do? I'm not so sure. It's scary if Dems have subpoena power. It's scary and it's going to get scary and ugly when Democrats hold a majority and finally do oversight. Is that what she means? I don't know. But usually what Maggie says is a portent of things to come, a little bit different than what we think it's going to be. We always like to think the best. And somehow it always comes out to be, well, not so much the best. Oh, no. Well, Trump, in spite of people's entreaties and wishes and hopes, decided to crash a funeral yesterday. And course, we're going to talk about Kellyanne Conway attacking the grieving Jewish community there in Pittsburgh, because that's what they do. You know, you have to be single-minded. You do. Looks like we are sending troops to the southern border. Now, of course, by law, they can't really do anything. They can't arrest drug dealers, rapists, and some very, very bad thugs. God, this guy is they're pulling out all the stops, aren't they? I mean, even the threat of war is right up there. They're throwing everything against the wall because, as Maggie Haberman said, very, very ugly, very, very scary. Mm-hmm. Yes, the tenuous hold on power is becoming even more tenuous, and now they realize it. And they're going to scramble. And they will scramble right over people's backs and put a jackboot right under their throat to keep their tenuous hold on power. Now, of course, it's not really fear of these unarmed women and children, mostly women and children, unarmed. They've been abused. They're fleeing violence. They're fleeing the destruction of society. And you know what? We're really to blame for it. Just saying. And maybe that's why it's not a fear, it's a hate. We don't want to be reminded of the destruction that we've wrought. You know what? Maybe the wall should be built, and on our side should be a giant mirror, so we can see exactly what kind of nation we are. Maybe that's what we should do. Now, I can understand the right wing, the Cult 45. You know, it's, like I said, it's not fear, it's anger. It's hate. The reason that they hate these unarmed women and children, and the reason that we have to send all those troops there, even if it's just for show, it's because those unarmed women and children abused from Honduras are going to hulk up. And you know they always do around election time. Kick the immigrant, kick the other, become tribal, and hold on to that tenuous grip of power. That's all they got. You know, there was a Fox Cryon, actually. I don't know. Maybe the intern got fired. But a Fox Cryon came on that said Trump utilizing fear and xenophobia, and the Democrats don't want to save health care, and yeah. So, really, truly, does Trump really think that we're as stupid? That we are as stupid as the people that he's able to grift? He's counting on it. He really is. And, but not so much a belief in it, but that we don't go to vote. We have to go to vote. They're gaming it already. We can only win by overwhelming numbers, and even then it's going to be barely eking out a win. So please go to vote. It's a week from today. All right, what's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Scary Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. An Oregon gun group draws fierce criticism for blaming a local rabbi for the Holocaust because he backed the state's assault rifle ban. Coming right on the heels of what happened in Pittsburgh is probably not a good idea, but they did it anyway because they are anti-Semites. Speaking of anti-Semites, Kellyanne Conway attacked grieving Pittsburgh Jews praying for peace instead of praying for Trump's success in the midterms. You hate Trump. You were praying for the dead, the brutally murdered. instead of praying for the success of health for you all. And newly elected Brazilian President Bolsonaro just launched a campaign against indoctrinator teachers as Brazilian police brutally raid universities. This guy doesn't wait around. After the break, we move to the chef's table where a Wyoming court rules the controversial ag-gag law violates free speech. You remember the ag-gag law, where reporters couldn't report on, I don't know, say like effluent flowing into a major tributary and fouling all the water supply? Couldn't report on that. And a Missouri GOP candidate's daughter urges voters not to elect her father because of his anti-Semitic views. Somewhat of a theme here on Scary Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, eh? All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Go to our homepage at netrootsradio.com. There are links there to determine if you are eligible to vote, meaning are you registered, and to register to vote. There is still time in many states to register to vote, even though Election Day is 1 week away, and early voting has begun. So please do register and make sure you're registered and vote. I mean, if you're all of that, please do vote. And if you have voted, get another friend to vote, family member. And if you haven't voted, how about having a party of voting? Go vote as a party. I mean, with chips and, nuts, and if you can have nuts, and a few fluids to imbibe with. Make it a holiday. At least, until you have to go back to work. Okay. Go then to the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. The chat room link is over there on the rightish of the page, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. She has her shows on Saturday. First one being At the Table with Kelly Lincoln at 3 p.m. on the West Coast, and that is 6 p.m. on the East Coast. Later on in the evening, or at night, she teams up with Ricky May, and they command the Round Table Roundhouse Power Hour, and that begins at 9 p.m. West Coast time. Midnight on the East Coast, and a power hour it is indeed. Do follow your eyes. All right. Look then to the leftish of the chat room link, and that is the contribute button. Please become a Patreon of Netroots Radio. Even just a small continuous donation just goes a long way. And to those who have not received their bumper sticker, that will be in the mail here, if not this weekend, then the beginning of the week. But I'll have that in an envelope at least today and make sure that it's in the pile to go out. Okay, so sorry for the delay on that. I'm still getting up to speed on many parts of the infrastructure. Okay, let's see. Please do and become a Patreon, and your generosity is greatly appreciated. It really does help us pay the bills. And thank you. Yeah, I mean, we're not getting Sheldon Adelson money, that's for sure, or any other that they keep saying that we might be getting. I only wish. But we're actually very happy to have you part of this endeavor, and we are resisting together. Thank you. Do follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. We are on Facebook, of course. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary for the show about 10 minutes before showtime, and I try to get the links out in the social media atmosphere as soon as I can after that. So, but, if you're at Daily Kos, there it is. And the show notes and links diary is a very important part of this whole multimedia operation. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, of course, on Facebook and other social media platforms. And you can get podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever fine podcasts can be found. Okay, well. We have a bit of a theme here, and it might have something to do with the recent tragic events perpetrated by Donnie Two Scoops, no matter what he says. You know, they're quick. They're quick to blame, other people's speech for being the cause of some great tragedy, or even a small one. But the party of responsibility sure doesn't take much responsibility for their actions now, do they? In fact, instead of taking responsibility for their actions, they double down in the bad behavior that they've already expressed. I hate the idea that we as Democrats have to be the daddy party. But you know what? That may be what we have to do. They keep saying nanny. But you know what? Yeah, I'll be your nanny. So this Oregon gun group has been around for quite a while. Oh, I should remind folks, Oregon is open carry. And there's a lot of guns here. They're awash with guns. And they walk around at Walmart, and people get shot out in the parking lots at Walmart. And but you got to blame the women and children refugees 1,000 miles away for destroying the very fabric of our society. Because no one on that side of the spectrum wants to take responsibility for their actions. Maxine Bernstein of the Oregonian. I know, I hate the Oregonian. It sucks. But here we are. Maxine Bernstein brings us this here. In the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, scary Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Very, very scary. And very, very ugly. Ceasefire Oregon denounced a page on the Oregon Firearms Federation's website yesterday that calls out one of the chief petitioners of a now-defunct initiative to ban assault weapons in the state. Actually, that was denounced on Monday late. Under a headline reading Michael Z. Kahana Memorial Page, it names Rabbi Michael Kahana of Portland's Congregation Beth Israel Reform Synagogue, accompanied by graphic photos of the Holocaust. The post suggests that the killing of millions of Jews would not have occurred if they had been armed with such weapons. You know what? They were. You know what happened to them? They were killed. You don't take on a military machine like the Nazis. Well, you do. But don't give us this damn lie that no one took up arms against the Nazis. God, I'm just killing me. Page goes on and says that Kahana wants the state to have a monopoly on force. Oh, yeah. It's the ones that are protecting us from the Nazis that are the real Nazis. Apparently, they no longer teach history in yeshiva. So here's to you, Rabbi. We've seen this before. Now, a Michael Z. Kahana memorial page. A memorial page, you mean when they're dead? I was on a list in high school stuffed in my locker that actually drew law enforcement scrutiny called the Communist Obituary. Yeah. And it still wasn't really construed whether it was all just for fun or if they really meant it. I took it to mean that they really meant it. But, I came from Oregon at that time. This happened in Orange County, by the way, back in the day. But I had moved from Oregon, and let's just say we kind of learned how to take care of ourselves, if we had to. slow to boil, but don't let us boil over. What? That's toxic masculinity now, isn't it? Well, the Federation, which bills itself as Oregon's only no-compromise gun lobby, because there's a lot of, no-compromise gun lobbies. They're trying to fake it. I mean, some of them that are no-compromise aren't really no-compromise because they actually believe that a gun should have a safety on it, maybe. Okay. Well, they oppose the initiative that sought a ban on assault rifles and high-capacity magazines. Ceasefire Oregon advocates for gun control legislation and supported it. This is really what the Oregon Firearms Federation is made of. Cruelty, hate, and ignorance, said Penny Okamoto, Ceasefire Oregon's executive director. People need to be aware of that. Kahana, who fortunately is out of the country at the time, and you better, if you're of a Semitic faith, whether Muslim or Jewish, get out. Just for a holiday even, till this boils over. Jesus. Responded by email late Monday night. He called the Firearm Federation stance the same kind of offensive blame the victim ideology that was espoused following Saturday's massacre at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. Yeah, if only those stupid Jews had been armed during their religious service, none of this would have happened. How about not having Nazis coming in and shooting people up because you're scapegoating immigrants to get a dog catcher elected in some backwater red district that you're finding that's going to be very difficult to get that dog catcher elected. Kahana continued, as a child of a Holocaust survivor, I believe I know far more about the reality of the Shoah than these purveyors of hate. To suggest that the Holocaust could have been averted if more people had guns is an insult to the memory of the 6 million Jews who died at the hands of the Nazi regime. Kylie Joy Gray of Share Blue Media brings us this next offering here at the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Scary Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Well, it looks like the White House is now attacking people for grieving. On Tuesday, Trump forced himself on a city grieving for the murder of 11 Jews who were shot dead in their synagogue on Saturday, even after they told him he was not welcome. And he was even told that his presence was like a security issue because they only had so much to pass around. Because if they had to pull security, to protect him, but that meant that it was pulling security from protecting the Jewish community from a copycat. And Trump said, "You mean there might be a copycat that would like murder some more Jews? I'm coming then." And he did. So the Jewish community of Pittsburgh responded not with anger, but with prayer. And now, White House counselor Kellyanne Conway is attacking them for it. I think it's unfortunate people were out there politically protesting with different messages today, Conway said, on Fox News. Or is that Trump TV? Obviously, Conway had no idea what those people were actually doing and didn't care enough to find out. Well, of course, these are the kind of people that bring a defrocked Jew for Jesus guy to be a Jew for Jesus guy at a Jewish memorial. BuzzFeed reporter Julia Reinstein was there to report on how the city Trump insisted on insulting with his presence was responding. We're sitting in Shiva as part of the grieving process for the 11 victims of the mass shooting. We want to respect the Jewish tradition of mourning, said Mariel Shalomchik, who brought food for the grievers. They sang prayer after prayer. My strength is balanced with the song of God will be my salvation. I don't read Hebrew well enough to do it properly, so I'll just do with the English translation. They said the mourners Kaddish for the 11 who were murdered. They prayed about love. They prayed about peace. And, yes, they told Trump he was not welcome until he denounces white supremacy. Well, that's just a bridge too far now, isn't it? These were the people, the Jewish community, burying their dead that Conway so viciously and so ignorantly attacked. Even though Trump has appealed to white supremacists and anti-Semites, spewing their hateful talking points and invoking their coded language to let them know he is one of them, the Jewish community responded to his presence not with anger, but with prayer. And in today's new a-go-go America, what could be more uncivil? Of Think Progress brings us another very, very scary and ugly story here at the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Scary, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. A campaign has been launched by a newly elected lawmaker in Bolsonaro's social liberal party to get students to denounce indoctrinator teachers who criticized Bolsonaro's resounding electoral victory on Sunday. Anna Campanola, who was elected to for the PSL, the Social Liberal Party, for the state legislature in the southern state of Santa Catarina, launched the campaign on Sunday. She urged her 70,000 Facebook followers to be on the lookout for indoctrinator teachers and provided a WhatsApp number so Russians can, help get them to help. No. So students could report party, political, or ideological expressions that humiliate or offend your freedom of faith and conscience. Wow. It's almost like Bolsonaro's a cult figure. In advance of Bolsonaro's victory in the second round of voting, where he defeated his leftist rival, Fernando Haddad, by 55 to 45%, Brazilian media reported that police had been entering more than a dozen universities across the country, questioning professors and confiscating left-leaning political material. And you know what's going to happen next? Like what happened before when they had a dictatorship. Liberal academics die. And you know what that means? Almost all the academics die because reality has a definite liberal bias. Ostensibly, the raids were to target illegal electoral advertising, since it is against electoral law to advertise for candidates in public spaces in Brazil. However, according to Brazilian media, the material confiscated was mostly broad pro-democratic statements, like flyers reading, "Manifest in Defense of Democracy in Public Universities," and Law UFF, anti-fascist. UFF refers to the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. Wow. Well, the Brazilian Attorney General, Raquel Dodge, has announced an investigation into the incident. There have been clear indications that there has been an infringement of freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and professorship, Ms. Dodge said in a statement. "I am requesting that the Federal Supreme Court request for an injunction to restore freedom of expression." And make matters even more worrying, Bolsonaro himself has promised to cleanse Brazil of left-wing criminals. Do you notice how they project? Now, he came into power on a wave of supposed anti-corruption. Mostly, now, let's be clear. There is corruption on many levels in Brazil, okay? But many of these political opponents of Bolsonaro are brought up on trumped up. Yeah, trumped up corruption charges. Well, he also said that together we will build a new nation and that these red criminals will be banished from our homeland. He has also repeatedly praised the brutal military dictatorship, which ruled from 64 to 85, and promises to stack his cabinet with army generals. My, what could go wrong? The PSL's anti-indoctrination program also bears a striking similarity to another recent proposal for Germany's far-right Alternative for Germany party. The scheme, launched in Hamburg earlier in October, encouraged German children to report any teachers who criticize the Alternative for Germany party. The program has been compared to Stasi tactics, and 50,000 people have signed a petition calling for its removal. Well, of course, I always called that the Stasi quo. It seeks to achieve balance. Oh, yes. Okay, let's get to our break. And, of course, when we come back, we will go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, still scary after 40 years. After several forgettable and downright terrible sequels of John Carpenter's campy, low-budget 1978 horror classic Halloween, the franchise has finally hit gold again with director David Gordon Green's fresh interpretation with the original title. Picking up 40 years after the debut, the audience learns what has since happened to both killer Michael Myers and his most memorable would-be victim, Laurie Strode, played once again by the iconic Jamie Lee Curtis. The years have not been kind to the latter, and to the credit of the screenwriters, this is one of the few times that a slasher film has ever acknowledged the long-term stress and psychological damage of being a survivor of such violence. In Laurie's case, her obsession with trying to stop Michael by any means necessary has taken its toll on her relationships with her daughter Karen and her now teenage granddaughter Allison. However, Laurie's problems go well beyond her estrangement from her family when Michael escapes while being transferred to a new psychiatric facility and decides to return to his old stomping grounds of Haddonfield, Illinois. His rampage through the neighborhood of not-so-smart teenagers provides some much-needed thrills and chills, but the heart of the movie isn't so much the graphic violence, but rather how survivors and would-be victims fight back when the odds are against them. It's especially noteworthy that in the end, it's 3 generations of women who attempt to take down the crazed killer, who seemingly will stop at nothing, and at times seems downright unstoppable. Without spoilers, this Halloween delivers what a well-financed 2018 horror movie should. Plenty of scary with a healthy dose of girl power, which is refreshing without being forced. This is truly a Halloween in the era of Me Too. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
In 2017, approximately 1 in 6 high school students reported a sports or physical activity-related concussion. Immediate symptoms of a concussion include headache, nausea, and double vision. Long-term, the effects of such injuries, particularly those that are more severe, can be life-changing. Healthcare providers, coaches, trainers, and parents should be aware of the symptoms of a concussion and how to treat them. A concussion protocol should be developed that includes withholding an athlete from practice and competition until all symptoms are resolved. While concussions cannot always be prevented, they can be treated in a way that decreases the chances of long-term health problems. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO. This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
For an expectant mother, taking care of her developing baby means taking good care of herself. One way she can do this is by ensuring she gets vaccinated. If a woman is or might be pregnant during flu season, it's especially important to get her annual flu shot, preferably before the end of October. In addition, women should be vaccinated against whooping cough during the third trimester of each pregnancy. Failure to get vaccinated places both mother and baby at increased risk for serious complications of these infections, including hospitalization and even death. If you're pregnant or planning to get pregnant, ask your healthcare provider when you should get your vaccines. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
You can help stop the Trump agenda in its tracks. Make sure you're registered to vote. Go to rockthevote.org. And on November 6th, vote for Democrats up and down the ticket. This message, a public service from all the fine people of netrootsradio.com.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
A day after visiting Pittsburgh to mourn the victims of the synagogue attack, Donald Trump returns to campaign mode, hitting 11 cities in 6 days before Election Day on Tuesday. During a 3-hour stay in Pittsburgh, the president and first lady somberly laid stones atop the 11 Star of David markers planted in the ground outside the Tree of Life synagogue, where 11 worshipers were gunned down. No local officials met with Trump. He didn't make any public remarks. And there were many who came out to protest his visit. I guess that's one of those Democratic mobs Trump and his cronies like to complain about.
We're just a few blocks from the synagogue, and I think we're all a little shocked at how big and how quickly and how big this protest got. I want to show you this is one protest that was coming up Forbes from this direction. There were maybe 2,000 people there by the end of it. And keep in mind, it was about 24 hours ago they started to organize this. Another protest group that was walking up the other direction on Forbes met this group, and then they all started marching, and it looks like they are taking a right down here on Shady. That way is another long block and a half is where the synagogue is. That is where President Trump is now.
Earlier in the day, Tuesday, the president made other news when he said he could end birthright citizenship with an executive order. But pretty much everybody says that's unconstitutional. Shepard Smith, the one on his Voice on Fox, pointed that out too.
President Trump says he plans to sign an executive order to end the right of citizenship for children born in the United States whose parents are not citizens and are undocumented immigrants. Of course, he can't do that. The reason? The Constitution. Here's what the president said to Axios for an HBO documentary series out this weekend.
It was always told to me that you needed a constitutional amendment.
Right.
Guess
14th
what?
Amendment.
You don't.
You don't.
Number one, you don't need that. Number two,
that's in dispute.
You could definitely
that's very much in dispute.
Well, you can definitely do it with an act of Congress, but now they're saying I can do it just with an executive order. Now, how ridiculous! We're the only country in the world where a person comes in, has a baby, and the baby is essentially a citizen of the United States for 85 years with all of those benefits. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and it has to end.
Not the only country in the world. There are 30 of them, including Canada next door. Further, constitutional scholars say in the event the president actually tries this move, there would be an immediate injunction and his order would not ever take effect. The Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has long pushed to change the Constitution on this matter, but that would require a 2/3 vote in the House of Representatives, plus a 2/3 vote in the U.S. Senate, and then ratification by 3/4 of the state's legislatures, and that is not under consideration.
Even Paul Ryan spoke out.
Well, you obviously cannot do that. You cannot end birthright citizenship with an executive order. We didn't like it when Obama tried changing immigration laws via executive action, and obviously as conservatives, we believe in the Constitution.
On MSNBC, Chuck Todd wondered how to cover a dishonest proposal honestly.
How do you cover a dishonest proposal from the President of the United States honestly? So today the President proposed doing away with birthright citizenship, the constitutional right that any child born in the United States automatically becomes an American citizen. Now, what the President really is proposing is that we stop talking about bombs sent to his political opponents by a political supporter, that we stop talking about whether a mass murderer was somehow influenced by his words or policy proposals, that we stop talking about the connection between his rhetoric and a spike in ethnic attacks, and that we start talking about what really matters. A week before the midterms, an unstoppable caravan of desperate refugees bent on destroying the country they hope to live in. Oh, let's pause this. So what do you call? So what do we do about this so-called birthright proposal? Do you ignore it? Well, that's difficult because Mr. Trump is, after all, the President of the United States. And what he says does matter. Do we take it seriously? Well, then we wind up letting President Trump become our assignment editor, talking about what he wants us to talk about, even though we know that using an executive order is a ludicrous way of doing it and totally unconstitutional. So here's what we'll do. We'll report that the President proposed ending birthright citizenship. The President proposed ending birthright citizenship. We'll point out that the Constitution will get in the way. The Constitution will get in the way. We'll report this so-called proposal will go nowhere. This so-called proposal will go nowhere. It's the final week before the election. Oh, and it's the final week before the election. Here's what we won't do. We won't report on something that won't happen because the President won't be happy if we don't. Because you know what that would be? That would be fake news.
New reports surfaced on Tuesday about a plot to discredit special counsel Robert Mueller.
Over the past few weeks, several reporters say they have been contacted by a woman who said she was offered money to claim she was sexually harassed by Mueller. The reporters say they determined the harassment allegation seemed like a hoax. They say it is unclear if the woman had been offered money to make the claim. Some journalists told Mueller's office about the interactions. In a very rare public statement, a spokesperson for Robert Mueller wrote today, and we quote, "When we learned last week of allegations that women were offered money to make false claims about the special counsel, we immediately referred the matter to the FBI for investigation."
And that's a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com/donate.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. Polluted air is now a global public health crisis, according to the World Health Organization. In a new report, the WHO said air pollution is having a vast and terrible impact on child health and survival, killing more than 600 children each year and hampering the development of millions more. Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus is the WHO Director General.
Some of our children will not reach their full potential because of exposure to air pollution in the womb and in early life. Some of our parents will die early because of exposure to it throughout their lives. And in many parts of the world, it's getting worse.
That's because global emissions from cars, manufacturing, and electricity keep on increasing too. Barbara Hoffman, a professor of environmental epidemiology at the University of Dusseldorf, said one fix is obvious, if not easy.
There are quite a few things you can do. Most importantly, you just have to stop emitting so much.
Hoffman said air pollution is connected to increased incidence of atherosclerosis, strokes, and heart attacks, and her new research explores how even low levels of pollution can have damaging health effects.
The way we are currently protecting our populations from air pollution is not good enough.
Mark Neuhausen of the Barcelona Institute for Global Health said even wealthy cities like Barcelona aren't immune. One study recently blamed air pollution in that city for 600 premature deaths a year. He adds that city dwellers often suffer from noise and air pollution and a lack of green space, but sometimes fail to grasp just how much certain smart policies, like replacing streets with walking and bike lanes, could improve their lives.
No one likes a lot of noise around from cars. No one likes the air pollution. But a lot of people, it's hard to imagine what it's going to be like without these kind of things around. And that's what we need to work on more.
Luke Vargas, The United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Scary, Smothered Benedict. Wednesdays, it's Halloween, folks. Boo! Okay, so we begin weather from around the world right here along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 46 degrees. And that's right, smack dab in the mid-40s as it was predicted. So, okay, thank you for that. We are expected to have nearly the same weather as yesterday, which was around 60, 61 degrees. So we'll see about how that occurs. Winds have now shifted and are coming out of the east. And they are bringing us showers here in just several hours or less. And so, yeah, we should have a high of around 58 to 61. Overnight lows will be, where will they be? Oh, I'm sorry. Overnight low of 50, 48. And then tomorrow we're going to shoot up in temperature to around 71. Rain should continue through the night, leveling off around trick-or-treat time. And then only intermittent tomorrow. And we'll see how intermittent it is. Ragweed pollen continues to dominate as the lead pollen causing folks problems, and that is now rated at low. The air quality index is good at 31, a few ticks up from what it was, though the daytime UV index is low and in the green range at 2. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.26 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles with 4,000-foot overcast ceiling of clouds. And it is, right now, fairly cloudy, but a very high ceiling. And relative humidity is at 81%. Oh, my. Well, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 54 degrees and partly cloudy. Paris, France is 51 degrees and rain. Rome, Italy is 66 and partly cloudy. Now, they do have a advisory, so let's click onto that right now and find out what that is. Oh, disruption due to thunderstorms. Oh, my God, right now it's 66 degrees Fahrenheit, and it even feels like 66 degrees Fahrenheit, which is even more important. But we do know that thunderstorm activity is a confluence of hot and cold. Okay? And we're not talking about passion here, though you might. And they do have, oh my gosh, 1.25 inches of rain for today, and then another inch tonight. Mixed in with thunderstorms. So, yeah, if you happen to be in Rome, I don't know. Live by candlelight, but beware and be safe. Okay. Kiev is 52 and cloudy. Kabul is 55 degrees with thunder in the vicinity, and that's actually electrical thunder, not drones dropping bombs. Hong Kong is 74 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 56 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 66 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 54 degrees and sunny. And New York, New York is 54 degrees Fahrenheit, and a cloudy fall day it is. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. And these people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. Kyla Mandel of Think Progress brings us this first offering, not counting weather, of course. At the chef's table, a West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy scary Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. In a victory for environmentalists, a Wyoming court has found that a controversial trespass law violates the right to free speech. The state's district court ruled late Monday that Senate File 12, better known as the data trespass law, is unconstitutional because it is in violation of the First Amendment. The law made it illegal for anyone to collect data on public or private open land, data often required by groups monitoring pollution from cattle and other agricultural practices. Critics of the law argue that it would silence whistleblowers who expose public land management issues, including and particularly malpractice within the agriculture industry. The law, they said, would make it illegal for citizen scientists or concerned residents, or you mean Americans who live nearby, to expose contamination of streams by the ranching industry, which represents a significant share of the state's economy. You can't report on poison going into your creek, or as sometimes people call it, a crick. In 2015, a coalition of environmental justice and animal rights groups filed a lawsuit against the data trespass law in federal court. The law has been compared to other ag-gag laws in states such as Idaho and Utah, which specifically targeted undercover investigations of slaughterhouses. These laws have also been successfully challenged in court. Wyoming, however, was the first to introduce a more generalized version of an ag-gag law that didn't have language directed specifically at factory farming. The state instead argues that the law was designed to grant more rights to property owners against trespassers. But the way it was set up, Wyoming's data trespass law put individuals gathering scientific data at risk of trespass violations should they cross over a parcel of private land on their way to a spot on public land, a clear possibility in a state with sprawling open land such as Wyoming. Public Justice represented the Western Watersheds Project, a nonprofit conservation organization that collects water quality data in an effort to improve public land management. The organization has been at odds with the ranching industry for years, at odds meaning that they've been shot at. Yes, indeed. Now, according to the ruling, targeting speech suggests, in fact, that you weren't trying to target trespass, and so the statute is not properly targeted. This law was Wyoming's attempt to really skew the discourse and prevent specific types of conversation to specifically prevent environmental speech. And the state was instead trying to hide its true intentions in language about trespass. Now, the court ruled there is simply no plausible reason for the specific curtailment of speech in the statutes beyond a clear attempt to punish individuals for engaging in protected speech that at least some find unpleasant. Now, one of the plaintiffs said, what we hope this decision shows is that the state legislators' attempt to hide the fact that they are hiding factory farms from scrutiny is not going to stand, that we are going to be able to show that they are in fact trying to suppress speech, just like when they specifically set out to target these undercover investigations. They may think they're being clever, but they are not. They are, in fact, violating the First Amendment.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Though I'm not always able to, it's always nice to be able to end the show on a happy note. And Cody Fenwick of Alternet brings us this happy note here at the Chef's Table of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Scary Benedict Wednesdays. Scary Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. And, of course, Cody Fenwick is from Alternet. Well, here's something you don't see every day. A political candidate's daughter speaking out against her father's election. I think it's just insane that people are putting out his signs, Emily West, daughter of GOP candidate Steve West, running for Missouri General Assembly, told the Kansas City Star, "You see his signs everywhere. I don't understand how people can put out his signs knowing the comments that he's made." Now, Steve West was already under fire for previously promoting bigoted and anti-Semitic ideas, and as the Kansas City Star previously documented, he said in an radio interview in 2017, well, looking back in history, unfortunately, Hitler was right about what was taking place in Germany and who was behind it. Oh, you mean globalist Jews? Well, as Emily West makes clear, this was not some erroneous mistake or misunderstanding. A lot of his views are just very out there, she said. He's made multiple comments that are racist and homophobic and how he doesn't like the Jews. The candidate tried to blame his daughter's denunciation on family problems. Oh, yeah, she was hypnotized and brainwashed by her liberal mom to get along with people and especially the Jews. Well... But it's not just his daughter speaking out. The Missouri Republican Party has also condemned his hateful comments. Anti-Semitism is a growing problem for the Republican Party. While the problem has lurked in the party for some time, the hateful mass shooting carried out at a Pittsburgh synagogue shone a spotlight on the bigotry, and Donald Trump has long trafficked in anti-Semitic rhetoric, as well as Steve King, who is facing blowback for his sympathy and ties to neo-Nazis. Missouri, however, has the opportunity to stop this kind of hate from rising to its legislative body. Emily West said, "I can't imagine him being in any level of government." From the mouths of the daughters. Believe them. All right, we better get out of here. It's the end of our broadcast period, and we will be back here tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. Netroots Radio will broadcast on with all that breaking news all day and all night. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio for that breaking news as it breaks. And we will visit with you tomorrow right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Coeur. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie d'un novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.